A lot of studies have shown that older people have increased appetite when they can smell the food being cooked. So this is a smaller facility, and the kitchen kind of permeates throughout the facility. So you can kind of smell that food being cooked. It stimulates the appetite. They eat together. I just think it just leads to better oral care of the patient.
Welcome to the Row Room Assisted Living Podcast with your hosts, Charlie Cameron and Alex Schloe. This is your go-to show for cutting-edge insights from industry leaders in residential assisted living.
Whether you're ready to launch your own assisted living business or looking to invest in this fast-growing, high-impact sector, we are here to equip you with the tools, strategies, and confidence you need to succeed. Get ready to ride the silver tsunami and change the future of senior care. Now on to today's show. Welcome back to today's episode of the Row Room Assisted Living Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe, and today we are thrilled to have Dr. Moffett on the podcast. Dr. Moffett, thanks for joining us.
Man, happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. It was great having you on the Physicians and Properties podcast. Now we get to do it again on the Row Room Assisted Living podcast. So super excited for the opportunity. Can you give us a brief introduction to you and where you are right now in your assisted living journey before we jump back in time to how it got started?
Yes, I'll try and do brief and not speak too quickly. So basically, we have doctors in care homes and doctors in real estate. So we focus on both the real estate and operating. There's different ways you can do this. You can do lease to operator. We kind of wanted to have the business as well. Right now, we have a 19-bed facility that we recently purchased. And then we have a couple in the works that we're looking at. But we're working on optimization of that individual facility, increasing this NOI. Got a lot of plans there. And then kind of on a professional side, as I am a physician, I actually do a lot professionally in that space too, and we can talk about how that interweaves. But basically, I'm a medical director of several nursing homes. I've also seen patients as a physician in assisted living facilities via home visits and home health companies and hospice companies. So I've kind of seen the medical side, and then I also do the kind of business real estate side.
Yeah, you have a wide breadth of experience across really kind of all facets of assisted living. And it's really cool to have that perspective of being a physician and seeing the patients in that nursing home environment or in that assisted living home environment. I'm sure that's led to a lot of key changes that you've made in your doctors in care homes. And we'll get to that too, some things that have been beneficial for your residents there. So tell us a little bit about your journey into the world of residential assisted living. How did you get started?
I've been doing real estate a little over 6 years, loved it, enjoyed it. And obviously I like being a physician as well. And kind of, I took over, I'm in a small underserved area. So I really saw everyone. I was doing ER and hospital and everything, but kind of we're a high geriatric demographic area. And the 85-year-old physician who was over all the nursing homes got sick shortly after I got here, and no one else wanted it. So I took over a bunch of nursing homes the first year of my attending career. So I kind of got immersed into that, which is definitely different, as we'll talk about in the show, from assisted living. But I got immersed into that geriatric population and really fell in love with it, but also just saw, man, I mean, bless the hearts of some of those nursing homes. They really are trying, but it's just not the best, and I work at some great ones, and they really do have good staff, but it's almost set up to fail, man. And they're funded by CMS, and it's like, the staffing mandates, and they just don't have enough money, and it's difficult. Anyway, so I do this real estate. I'm doing a lot of geriatric medicine, and I'm trying to think about I do a lot of things, but how to eventually, as I get closer to 40, to kind of pyramid that up and try to get to where I'm doing one or two things that kind of encompass these other ones. And I listened to a podcast on Bigger Pockets where Brandon Turner and Dave interviewed, I think it was Jean Guterre's daughter, the Residential Assisted Living Academy, Silver Tsunami lady.
Yeah, Isabel.
I'm doing her, Isabel. I'm doing her. I can never remember her name. She seems awesome, but I always forget her name. But and she was going through it, and I was like, man. I've been listening to podcasts for 3 years. I've been doing real estate forever. Like, I mean, why would I not do this? I decided that day, and it was 2 years ago, and we didn't actually get a home until this year, but I decided that day I was going to do it. I started reaching out to people the next day. I mean, I contacted tons of, because I do walk in that arena, I basically would call like a home health company and be like, hey, what personal care homes, assisted living homes do y'all go to? And they told me, and I call them and meet with them. Most of them are mom and pops. We do have some large, big box facilities, 45 minutes away from me or something. But yeah, that's kind of a long answer, but that's kind of how I got into it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like the perfect way for you to kind of marry both passions, the medicine side of things, the real estate side of things, and kind of bring that together and create a business out of it as well, which is awesome to see how you're able to blend all of that together. Were there any surprising challenges that you faced when you were starting or operating your first home, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so many like random things you do not think about. And I've owned I own real estate. I own a small gym. Every time I start a new business, do something new, it's like these random little insurances you didn't know you had to have, or these random little regulation things. I mean, I did a ton of research on the home, but still, like, so there's emergency operation plans that you have to have by the State Department of Health. They're due every November. We bought the facility September 30th. In all my due diligence, I had not thought of that whatsoever. Didn't come across. So like a day after I got it, the State Department of Health emails me. He's like, hey, we need your 108-page EOP plan in a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay. Because I'm operating them as well. So the manager, so we bought one that was already operating. The manager's great, but the owner had been doing that aspect. So the manager I had never done it before. I was able to contact the owner. She helped me a little bit. I had to change a lot of stuff, but it's just all these random things you just wouldn't think of. There was so one big issue I ran into is in Mississippi, when you cannot get a license for the facility until after you close in the facility. And it can take up to 30 days to get a license. So you have to use the other owners and operators' license when you first buy it, but they don't have to agree to do that. So it's like this weird gray area. I didn't really realize that till I was already like purchasing it. Fortunately, she agreed to like, yeah, you can keep it. And we had to keep her insurance on too, because I talked to the insurance company, like, we can't give you liability insurance until you have a license, but we also can't make her, provide her insurance to you. And I was like, well, that sounds horrible. So I called her. I was like, look, I'll pay you, whatever you need, how much your monthly premium is. I'll even pay you more than your monthly premium. Just please give me insurance. So she was very, very accommodating. She was very, very gracious to do that, because I feel like it was a little bit of liability for her too, because she's like, I'm now running it, but her insurance could be the one that was paying the bill. So it was just, I would not have thought about that, but that's just kind of how it works in Mississippi, because you can't apply for these licenses and insurances until you actually own the facility. So
yeah, man, that's a good tip, and tough, and it's really important for make sure folks are looking into that beforehand and figuring out, man, what are these things that may come up right when you're about to get at the closing table? Because there's always something, as you mentioned. And so, yeah, well, I'm glad that all worked out. I'm glad she was willing to be accommodating, let you work under her license. You're a trustworthy guy with a good bit of experience, so that probably helped compared to most, but I'm glad that worked out for you. Do you mind kind of telling us a little bit about that first deal that you did, the first residential assisted living deal that you did? What was it, and how did you set that up for success? It was a pretty cool story that you shared on my podcast, Physicians and Properties. So yeah, feel free to tell us a little bit about that first residential assisted living deal that you did.
yeah, so like I said, I've been looking at them for a little over a year and a half when this one came to me. This was one of the first people I reached out to. I was asking around. I was like, hey, I met a lady who owned one locally, had just sold it. She opened a book. She taught me a lot. And I was like, who was kind of people that you look to? And she was like, oh, there's this lady that's owned one forever, and she does a really good job with it. It's in this town. She's excellent. Reach out to her. So I reached out to her. She let me go up there and tour the place, introduced me to her manager. And she's like, look, I don't want to sell right now, but she's like, I love that you were interested in this. She was like, we don't see a lot of young people coming into it. Let me teach you stuff. And she would email me, I get a deal and I'd send it to her and she'd be like, yeah, this and that, and think about this. So we were in contact for a good while. Just a super sweet lady. She was a nurse. Her husband was a minister in a town about an hour north of here. Just really great people. And just really good contact with her. And I do a lot of nursing home work, like I said, and I had dressed up like Elvis at the nursing home for Elvis Day several months ago. And I was, shaking my leg and doing all that stuff. And they posted to all the social media sites. And she called me that day. And she was like, look, I told you I didn't want to sell this. But she was like, I'm in my 60s. I was like, I just saw you be an Elvis nursing home. You obviously have a connection with these people. You obviously have a passion for it. She's like, I want to sell it to you now. And I was like, well, I'll just put all my money in another deal. I do some other real estate, so I just put like all my money in another deal. And I was like, but I will make it work. That's okay. We will figure it out, because I knew it was an excellent home. This was the one I thought I was going to get 5 years from now, after I already owned 2 or 3, because it was a little bit larger. Its NOI was, we're talking like $18,000-$19,000. It was going to be a little bit higher price to buy. The facility was nicer than some of the other ones I've been looking at. It wasn't like a $5 million facility or anything. We'll talk about the numbers in a minute, but it was just nicer than I thought my first one would be. But she wanted to sell it to me. She was excellent. We walked through it. Do you want me to kind of go ahead and go into kind of how we negotiated that and how the numbers were? Or do you want to? How do you want to set that up, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to make 2 key points real quick. The most important thing was you formed a relationship with her, and you kind of met her where she was at. She wasn't really willing to sell, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep in contact. I'm going to keep reaching out, and I'm going to dress up as Elvis, which I was going to have you do your best Elvis impression, but we won't do that right now. But But yeah, no, and you went above and beyond, both for the relationship with her, but also for your residents, for your patients. And I think that's really important. The other thing was, this was a mom and pop operator who sounded like they were getting ready to retire. They wanted out of the business and it was time. And so you were also solving a problem for them as well. And a lot of people figuring out how to get started need to understand there's a lot of mom and pop operators who want to retire, or they want to sell their business. And it's a perfect opportunity for you to form that relationship with them. And it might take some time. It might take dressing up as Elvis before you get that deal, but it's worth it. And so I just wanted to make sure we hit those points of the importance of relationships in real estate and in residential assisted living. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. If you don't mind, let's jump into the numbers of the deal, if you don't mind, and we'll talk through that.
So I did, like I said, I was doing research for 2 years. This is not how it's done everywhere. I mean, a lot of times you can do SBA loans for these. You can buy them all at one. You can buy the property and lease the operator. But what most people have done here when they bought mom and pop ones, unless it's some huge company coming in, because there are PE companies, because they recognize we do a better job. Me and you are going to do a better job, but PE companies are coming in and buying these too. But most of the time happens is they sell it in 2 transactions here in Mississippi. In the small towns, mom and pop ones, they sell the real estate for appraised value, and then they're selling most of them seem to be selling the operating business for 1 year gross. You could do 3.5 times. You could do, cap rate, here it's like 7 to 8 because it's a lower income area. So, the cap rate's pretty good. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but most people do 2 transactions. They do commercial real estate at appraised value or the residential real estate at appraised value, and then they do the operating business. So she came up with 1.2 million because she thought the building was worth 600 and she thought that her business was worth 600, which actually I think was fair. Like you said, she originally told me 18 and 23, it was really closer to 16, though she had spent $50,000 in improvements to the facility. She bought 2 new HVACs and I think a few new water heaters and some other stuff. So historically her NOI was a little bit closer to that 18 number, but it was 16 and 23. And because of that, I was like, look, I've got based off last year's numbers. Can we come down some? So we got down to 1.16. We dropped about 40,000. This was contingent upon appraisal of the property, obviously, But the whole time I was telling her, I was like, look, we can play around with this though. If the property appraises for 400 and you still want 1.1, just give me better terms because we went on the owner finance, and I was like, just give me better terms on owner financing. Like, I'll pay you $1 million. I'll pay you whatever you want if the numbers work for what my projected expenses and my projected numbers are. If you give me 0% interest over 50 years, I don't care. We'll do whatever. Yeah. I'll pay you whatever you want. She was going to 1031 after talking to me, she was going to 1031 the real estate purchase into another real estate purchase. And then she liked the idea, I was like, look, that saves you money there, but how are you going to save money in the operating business? And I was like, well, sell the financing to me. It's how you're going to save tax money there because you pay, you spread your taxes out over time. So we ended up coming, the facility appraised like $599, but she kept it to $580. And then we did $580 for the business. The real estate I purchased with 15% down, commercial. They do this commercial real estate, but it's fine, whatever. It worked out better for me anyway. 15% down, 20-year amortization. I think we ended up getting, it was either a 7 or 10 year, I think it was 7-year guaranteed. I think I've got to go back and look. I think it was 7 year, which is pretty good. 6.5. This was back in September when you were looking at like 7.5. So I had to call like 10 banks to find a 6.5. And they did it over 20 years, and that was good. And for her, we did solar financing. Like I said, back then, interest rates were really closer to 8. I tried to get her down a little bit to 5 or 6, but she wanted to do 7. It worked out, though, because she gave me 3 months of delayed payments, no interest, which I asked for because I wanted to build up my cash reserves. I had a couple of partners on this deal. It's my first big one. I wanted to be extra conservative, so I was like, hey, I'll pay you the 7% if you give me the first 3 months, no payment, no interest. She was like, yeah, that's fine. So I basically just cash rolled, for 3 months there. So I was able to make an extra, $13,000 in my cash reserves in my operating account. So that's kind of, and we did 30-year AMs. She's doing she spread that over 30 years, but banks don't do that. I could not have got a bank to do a delayed payment by 3 months and then 30-year AM. There's no way they would have done that. But it worked out for her. We did a 10-year balloon payment in the deal. She is in her 60s and she wanted some protection there. She's open to maybe refinancing it herself. We also have tons of options. I think by then my equity in NRI is going to be substantially higher. So I'm going to have a ton of options if I, 10 years from now to refinance her out of it. But that's what we did. So we did 580 real estate, 580 seller financing, real estate 15% down, 6.5% over 20-year amortization, 7-year term or 7-year guarantee. We did 10-year balloon payment over a 30-year amortization at 7%, 3 months no payment, no interest on the owner financing section. And like I said, she had no debt on the place, so she was doing very well, but provided a good place for them too. was closer to 18. I knew that I was going to have increased expenses. Plus, I was going to have the loan payments. My loan payments were looking like it was going to be about $8,000 a month. I wanted to have as close as possible to $8,000 of cash flow, and I felt I was going to be able to get close to that from the onset. And when getting to this, like I could talk forever, I don't want to be too chaotic, but it was under rented. We can go through those numbers if you want me to, and kind of my plan for getting that up and adding units to the facility. So I knew that I had all of these options. So even though it worked, I wanted to make sure it worked as is. I think you should never buy any business if you can't make the numbers work as it is day one. So it worked day one, but it wasn't providing, these 10, 15, 20 grand a month things you hear some people say, but it was providing very good cash flow day one. I knew that I could get it, to that 12, 13,000 number within a couple of years. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. Really cool. A few key points. I think, one, you were able to get the commercial loan 15% down, financing at 6.5%, which is awesome for the real estate, and also be creative, probably because the relationship you had with her to be able to seller finance. And I'm sure there was probably some discussion back and forth discussing, hey, what does seller finance look like? And here is how it benefits you. And it can really be quite beneficial for folks, especially in her setting where she wants to retire. She probably wants some cash flow coming in, and she's able to get that cash flow by seller financing the business, and you're not having to come up with that cost for the business out of pocket. So that's really awesome. Yeah, let's talk about, kind of one, once open, it's pretty common that we hear folks say they have a hard time getting occupied or getting fully occupied with great residents. So what do you think has been helpful for you to find residents for your home? And or we can kind of also add in there, what have you done to increase the monthly rate that you're charging residents with the value add aspect of this deal?
So that was what I felt best about. When I was talking to my partners, and so I'm I'm the president CEO, and we pay me a small salary. We can get into that too if we need to. Not enough for what I do, but it's fine. So I want to thank my partners and get them a good investment. So it's okay. But I do, like I said, I work with tons of home health companies, tons of hospice companies, tons of nursing homes. And I also have a good relationship with several small hospitals locally. Where do people come from for these? They come from home health. They come from hospitals. They come from nursing homes. They graduate out of a Part A rehab program. And for non-doctor listeners, Part A is like basically you're in a rehab part. So you're only at the nursing home for your hip fracture. You plan on going back home, but maybe you get to where you could walk, but not that well. So you might need to go to an assisted living after that nursing home. So I knew I had these relationships. So I felt very confident in my ability from all those relationships. And before I even bought the place, I was reaching out to hospice and home health companies. I was like, hey, if I get one, y'all gonna be able to help me? They're like, oh man, if you get one, we're gonna give you, like, yeah, absolutely. We will send patients to you. So I kind of was checking this stuff before. And when I bought it, the place was phenomenal. It'd been at 100% occupancy for 14 months when I bought it. She had 4 months of vacancies in the past 4 years. That was all during 2021 COVID, basically, when everyone was vacant. And I think she only had like 15% vacancy then. I mean, so one of the reasons I wanted this facility as my first one was kind of that track record. It's been there 25 years. It has a good reputation. But I did have 2 residents die, unfortunately, right after I bought the facility. It took me 7 days to get one of them, to flip one of them to a new resident, and 10 days for the other one. The average in our area is about 15 days. So I beat that average on both of them, utilizing, taking out an ad in the newspaper, because old people, the people who buy these for their parents are like 60 and they're buying it for their 85-year-old parent. A lot of them still read newspapers, word of mouth, calling my home health companies. And then my manager, who I kept from the previous owner, had a lot of good contacts, and she helped me find one of them, and then we found one through another method. But yeah, that's what I felt pretty good about. I was like, I think I can get people there. There's a need for it, as you know all about. There's a huge mismatch. Silent generation currently lives there. We're about to have baby boomers living there. 20 million more of them than there are of the silent generation. So I knew the metrics were there, but I kind of relied on, you always hear, all these big real estate people and business people say, what are you good at? What can you bring? I knew that I had connections with all these groups that refer people to assisted living homes. And that was kind of one of my big things that I felt good about. But ultimately, we can go further and further into it, but it always comes back to having the best staff. I was a CNA before I went to med school. Hard job. They're underpaid. So I raised. You're not going to have good care of your people and be able to fill it if you have a bad reputation, if you have bad aides. So I increased pay for almost everybody. The aides work hard. So I think having that good staff is another way to stay full, because if if they're not taking care of the residents, then you're going to get a bad reputation. So I mean, you've got to have good staff. I mean, that's the absolute most important thing. It doesn't matter about activities, how pretty the place is, how many flowers you have. I mean, if you don't have someone there that cares for your mom, you're going to take your mom somewhere else. I mean, that's just, at the end of the day, that's how it is. So I focused on staff and then my networking and relationships.
That's awesome. What are some things that you've learned to help find good staff? You mentioned some ways that you help retain your staff. You treat them well, you increase their pay, but what are some ways that you've found some good staff?
So far, I've mostly empowered my manager and relied on that. I talked to her a lot before I bought the place. I talked to her a lot during it. She has been the manager of it for 9 years. So, I was like, do you think you can find quality staff? And have you been able to? And she's like, I think I can. I asked her, like, what are you looking for? She answered it. And I was like, I have faith in you. I trust you. I'm going to give you the full go ahead. I'm empowering you to do it. You can even, within this pay range, if you think they deserve more, just, I'm giving you a little bit of latitude. And we're only on it for a few months. But like I said, we've already had big people quit and she was able to find someone, very, very quickly. So I've tried to empower her until she shows me that she's struggling with it, and I'm going to continue to empower her. But if I had to, what I would do is I'd go back to that network. I'm a doctor. I work with a lot of nursing homes who have nurse aides who probably don't like their job, and I can just be like, hey, pay you $1 more if you come over here. I mean, that's probably what I would do. So.
And that's a great way to do it. I think about the CNAs who are in these big box facilities and they're working so hard to take care of 15, 20, 30 residents, and they could come work in your home and take care of, have a resident to caregiver ratio of 1-8 or 1-10 or 1-5 or whatever that may be. So regardless, that's going to bring down how much work they have to do. And then it's going to lead to much better care. And then residents that are living longer and are much happier. And then the residents' families are then also going to work as a referral vehicle for you of like, hey, look how good my dad or my mom is getting. Look how good of a care they're getting there. And then it's just going to come back. And so it's really important. We tell folks that all the time, that your staff is going to be the linchpin. Your staff is most important. So when you find a good caregiver, treat them like gold, keep them there.
Absolutely. And, that's my whole thing too.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt this episode, but I've got a question for you. Do you want to share in the wealth and incredible returns from the highest demand asset class in real estate without the hassle of doing it all yourself, or at least not yet? Residential assisted living is booming and it's only gaining momentum. That's why we created an investment fund at Open Range Capital, so you can benefit without the heavy lifting. With the silver tsunami upon us, demand for assisted living is far outpacing supply, making this the can't miss opportunity for the next few decades. We provide access to fully vetted investment opportunities that are primed for success and ready to deliver strong passive returns. Don't wait, ride the wave with us. Visit theralroom.com/invest to partner with us on future investment opportunities. Again, that's theralroom.com/invest. We look forward to connecting with you. Now back to the episode.
I was talking to my manager today, actually. We were talking about some issues, and I was like, look, I don't want to go and hire some new person at a higher rate than someone who's already working here. I will not do that. Someone's been here 10 years. They're doing a good job. I'm not starting anyone out more than what they make, even if they don't know, because we don't know. They don't all know what each other makes. But I'm just not. If you've been here 10 years and you've shown up, you're doing a good job, I'm going to increase your pay, and retain you. And that's what we would do. And we actually were increasing some of their pays, because they've been picking up extra shifts, because we had a couple of younger ones that wasn't showing up. And I was like, look, before we go out and hire a new one, I want to increase the pay of the ones who are doing a good job, so.
How do you handle some of those staffing issues? Like if someone doesn't show up for a shift, or does your manager take care of all that for you?
Manager, I made it very, when I was buying the place, I tried to make that very, I increased her pay as well, because the owner was not there every day. It was fairly, the manager did operate a lot of it, but the owner did some stuff. And when I was taking over, I was like, look, I'm a physician. I live a little bit away. I really want to focus on empowering you and focus on kind of building the company more than the day-to-day operations. I was like, do you think you can do X, Y, Z, and I'll pay you a little bit extra, and we'll work out some structural to where, you have to stay so long, and I'll give you like a bonus on all this. And she said she could, and she has this for. So we've had discussions on philosophies. I was like, what is your philosophy on when someone doesn't show up, how do you handle it? And she's given an answer that I agree with. And she actually has more managerial experience than I do. I'm 35 and I've, been doing it for a couple of years. She doesn't own a business, but she's been a manager for 15 years. So she arguably knows much more than I do. So I really leaned on her, and what I'm trying to do right now is make sure I know what she is doing. And I'm also trying to train an assistant manager too, because there wasn't really a true assistant manager. So day one, I was like, who's the best one here besides you? And she was like, this person. I was like, all right, we're increasing your pay. You're an assistant manager. Start learning everything she does, because I don't want to do it if she leaves. So, so that was one of my first things I did too, was creating that assistant manager position. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and you're empowering your staff and you're training them within and promoting them within too. So that's only going to further empower them and make them more likely to stay with you long term, because they see, hey, here's a path to progress or a path to growth within your business, which is awesome. Well, if you were to start over, what would you do differently, or what advice would you have to someone who's just getting started in residential assisted living?
good questions, which is usually a way of saying, let me think about it. I think there's two different words there. So let me kind of break that apart. So what would I possibly do different if I started, and then what advice would I give to someone? I think those two things may be different. So
Sure.
let's start with the advice thing. I think that I don't want anyone to get stuck in analysis paralysis, but I think it's probably, people might disagree, but I think it's better to be stuck in analysis paralysis a little too long than to jump in to a $2 million project when you don't know what the heck you're doing. Get educated, feel confident in it, listen to things like what Alex doing, listen to me, look at these education things from multiple different people, because someone may have a different viewpoint than Alex. You learn from, read books. Just get as much education as you can. But you have to also get to a point where you feel confident in it too, and build your team. You don't have to do this alone. Like I said, I'm a 50% owner, and I am kind of the president of it, but I knew one of my weaknesses was going to be kind of the accounting aspect of it. So one of my partners is an accountant. We made him a CFO, and we paid him a small salary as well. We use Paycheck, which is a payroll processing software. We looked at a few different ones, and they've been great. Because I had no experience with, how do you keep up with the taxes, the payroll taxes, and all this. So I knew that wasn't something I wanted to do or good at. So I partnered with someone who was. So get educated. If you think it's an area you weak in, find a partner who does that aspect well. Make sure you vet your partners. Make sure that you kind of know who they are and know what they want. Set clear expectations. With all my partners, I was like, look, year one, we don't have to pull any money out of it, okay? Like, I want to show you on paper where you had a return on investment, but there's going to be no, we all have to understand that no money's coming out. And I would prefer no money come out to year 5, but we can talk at year 2 about taking some profits out if y'all desire, and we'll vote on it. And I was upfront with that kind of the whole time. I was like, I'm going to show you on paper how you have profits, but we're just going to leave it there and kind of roll with it. And we did a cost tech study this year that's going to kind of help negate those taxes that we would have owed. So we won't actually be paying out of pocket for the taxes, the profits. So get educated. If you have a weakness, get a partner, vet the partner. So that's what I would recommend to a new person. What would I do differently? So I had having too many things happen at one time. This wasn't supposed to all happen at one time. Like I said, I wasn't really prepared to buy this facility at this exact moment. I was building a tiny home village close to where I live that I was kind of high into. I just took a new job. I have like 10 jobs. You can look at my bio. I have like 10 jobs, but I just taken a new administrative role. I was supposed to be able to have less of my old job, but I was still doing my full old job. I had the new job. I was doing my tiny home project, and then this came along. So it was a lot at one time. And I'm still feeling the ramifications for that, because I'm still only a few months out from that, and it's still kind of a lot. I do think I overextended myself in a few ways. My wife's been great. My partner's been great. So I don't know how I would have changed the time, because I think I should have done this. And some of it was my fault, but some of it wasn't. Like, I was supposed to have one job, and it didn't, So, some things you can't control. But I just, I had a lot happen at one time, and I would have rather not had everything happen the exact same week. I think I had 2 huge projects due like the exact same week. So that was
on top of being a doc and doing everything you do there as a physician. So man, that's a lot. Yeah. So maybe trying to balance a little bit more, which is tough, and especially because this was a great opportunity and an opportunity you weren't necessarily expecting. It all goes back to the fact that you dressed up as Elvis and she was ready to sell. So we can all bring it back to Elvis, which is good.
I'm gonna have to get you that picture. I'm gonna have to send you that picture.
Yeah.
Elvis, so.
Yeah, maybe Elvis should be like the headshot, or for the cover art, we'll use a picture of you as Elvis. What is some mistakes that you see new operators make? Or, maybe an easier question would be, what are some common things that you see in these big box facilities or in nursing homes that make you realize residential assisted living is a much better opportunity than being in a big box facility?
Oh man, there's just no personalization there. And a lot of these mom and pop ones, you'll have the same caregiver work there 10 years, and she'll take care of the same people. She has a caregiver ratio, like you said, of 1 to 10, 1 to 8, 1 to 6. Sometimes even you're going to have 1 to 30. Now, there are regulations when you can't have 1 to 50. That's not allowed in like any state that exists anywhere. But you'll have like 1 to 1 to caregiver ratios. It's just so much more personalized. And I really think the food is better. The food in my place is excellent. My cook knows exactly what everyone likes. We get high quality food. It's home cooked meals. She knows exactly how much salt and sugar and butter Miss Betsy wants in hers and so wants in hers. I mean, the food is just phenomenal, and it's catered to the individual resident, and they can't do that at a big box. If you got 100 people, you can't cater 100 meals to meet the individual specification. And also, it's a smaller facility. A lot of studies have shown that older people have increased appetite when they can smell the food being cooked. So this is a smaller facility, and the kitchen kind of permeates throughout the facility. So you can kind of smell that food being cooked. It stimulates the appetite. They eat together. I just think it just leads to better care of the patient. So.
Yeah, that community aspect is definitely much more pronounced in a residential assisted living home than a big box facility as well. It's just the way to go, man. It's such an incredible opportunity, and we're so excited. There's people like you who are changing the face of assisted living and providing really great care. Are there any specific trends that you've seen in the assisted living industry lately, whether that's at your work as a physician or in your home, at the home that you operate, or anything that you've noticed in particular?
I kind of mentioned it earlier. I've seen this happen everywhere. PE, private equity, is buying up everything medical the past few years. They bought orthopedic clinics close to me. They're buying up assisted living facilities, personal care homes. And I don't know, you probably know a little bit about PE because you're in the financial world some, but they cut profits over everything, and they have short-term goals. So they pretty much want to buy and then resell in 3 years. The only way to do that is to cut expenses, because you're not going to, I have a 10-year vision for my business. I think 10 years from now, I may be worth 5 times what I am now, but not 1 year from now. So really the only way you can do that in 2 or 3 years is to cut expenses, and that is not the best care. I'm actually increasing my expenses because I know that over 5 years it's going to pay off. So I think the private equity companies are coming in and buying up these mom and pops because no one else is there. Me and you are trying to help. I want to buy these mom and pop places, but a lot of them can't find someone like me or you, or maybe someone that's watching this podcast to go buy. And some PE companies like, hey, I'll give you $1 million for it, cash, no owner financing, just give you the money for it. But what I found is, this lady actually had an offer. I had talked to some people from Florida that was similar to that PE thing, and she could have probably sold it to them more. She did not want to because she was concerned about the care that would be given to these people. These mom and pop operators want to sell to individuals. They want to sell to people they think will care about the people that live there. And I think that's where we have a huge opportunity to come in and help.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to sell to people that they know, like, and trust, who are going to keep the legacy and the reputation of that home. And so it just offers another opportunity, and it offers, even more insights to the importance of relationships, and building those relationships. Because the private equity firms, they're not building relationships. They, like you mentioned, all they care about is money and making it quick. And unfortunately, that leads to then poor care because they're cutting expenses, which means they're probably firing some of their staff or getting lower quality food, or who knows. And it's all going to come back to a worse care for the residents. So that's awesome, man. I love to hear that. Well, we'll work on starting to wrap some things up here with some closing thoughts. So for anyone is listening who is on the fence about getting started or getting involved in residential assisted living, are there any closing shots or anything that you would tell them?
I'm not going to say just do it because it may not be for you. And I think I heard on a podcast that you were on with someone else. You said something similar. You were like, make sure you want to do it. Obviously, it's a little bit more passive if you do the lease to operator thing, but it's still not the most passive real estate investing. It's not like buying a turnkey property. It's not. Especially if you're going to operate it like I do, it's a lot. And I think that you need to make sure you have the mental bandwidth and the ability to do so. I'm not scaring anyone out of this. Please don't. I want y'all to go do this because these mom and pop people want people to buy the facilities and they want to have you here. I don't want private equity owning every one of these in the country because I don't want my mom to be a private equity owned facility in 30 years. I want to be at one that y'all have. But just make sure it's for you. Like I said, it was 1 year and 10 months from the day I decided I was going to buy one to I got one. I'm not saying wait that long, but don't decide you're going to buy one and go buy one the next day. Think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of hard work. It is not passive, but it's such a rewarding, fulfilling investment that you don't get anywhere else in real estate, and great returns. Let's be honest, it is also a good business to be in. And so it's, we think the perfect blend of real estate and business, and most importantly, caring for folks who need it. And so it's awesome. Love residential assisted living. Before we go, what's something that you're working on right now that you're passionate about?
Well, this is still new, and I plan on growing it. I would like to have, I'm not wanting to have like a hundred of these. I really do I want to have 3 to 5 in 5 years, and I really want to kind of step in more to that true CEO role. And through doing that, though, I want to be able to offer insurance to my employees, because right now we don't. But if I have 5 of these and I have 100 employees, I can offer benefits to them, insurance to them. I can treat them really well, our residents really well. I think I can customize more things, and you really do a great job with it. So I want to grow this. But really, my main focus and the thing I'm passionate about right now is how to get all my passions together in a manner that allows me the most time with my family. So right now I'm working on streamlining everything so that I can eventually buy back time. I'm not necessarily buying back my time yet. I am working towards that. I am trying to find things. One reason I like, this, I can do it on my own time. If I want to jump on a podcast at 8:30, if you're an ER doctor, your shift, you're stuck there. You're there the whole shift, and that's just what you're doing. You can't leave. I'm getting to where I can kind of take my daughter to school. I can pick them up from school some. Those are things that are important to me. So what I'm passionate about is streamlining my passions, kind of getting them into a more manageable position so that I can ultimately buy back my time with my family.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a perfect answer. Well, how can listeners learn more from you or reach out to you?
Primarily social media. The main thing I use is LinkedIn. I have Facebook and stuff, but the one I use for any of this type of stuff is going to be LinkedIn. Craig Moffett at LinkedIn. Happy to discuss this. I also do some consulting on the side, both professionally for quality improvement of nursing home and assisted living facilities, and then if you want me to talk to me about any of this stuff, I'm happy to do that too. And then Doctors in Care Homes, so it's Doctors in INN, like the hotel. That's the name of our company. DoctorsInCareHomes.net is our website that we have. But yeah, man, just reach out. I love talking about this. Would love to connect. So.
Awesome. Yeah, this was great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Moffett, for joining us today and sharing your insights on the Residential Assisted Living Room Mastermind, the RAL Room Assisted Living Mastermind. Mix that up there. It's been a pleasure learning from you, man, and it's been a long day in the clinic, so that's why I'm mixing things up. You can relate, but it's been awesome having you on the RAL Room podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of the night.
Yeah, man. Thanks. You too.
Thank you for tuning in to the RAL Room Assisted Living Podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a raving 5-star review. And a quick review helps more listeners find the show and more seniors get the exceptional care they deserve.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And just so you know, we have prepared some free resources for you to help you succeed in residential assisted living in addition to this podcast. Head over to theralroom.com, that is theralroom.com, to download our free 10-step guide to launch your first or next residential assisted living home, or our 10 reasons to passively invest in residential assisted living ebooks.
And if you're ready to take the next step and make real moves in the RAL industry, join us in the RAL Room Mastermind. It is an exclusive community where we deep dive into everything you need to launch and grow your own residential assisted living business. You'll get access to recorded courses, live calls with industry experts, a RAL calculator, resources and tools, like-minded entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and an expert networking community to help you along your journey.
Be sure to join us next time on the RAL Room podcast as we continue to explore the world of residential assisted living with more great guests. See you then.